right, still a bit to cover on the budget today. To do that now, we're joined by our political panel, which is senatorial in nature. Joining us, Labor Senator Marielle Smith. Welcome back, Marielle. And New South Wales Liberal Senator Andrew Bragg is with us too. Same to you. Andrew, a $300 energy bill relief. Why don't we start with you, Marielle? It's not means tested, which seems to me not a Labor thing to do. So the consequence is, are you making amends for those who were diddled somewhat by the stage 3 tax cuts in granting them at the middle and upper ends of the income scales $300?
No, Greg, this is broad brush cost of living relief because we know a lot of Australians are feeling the pressures of cost of living at the moment, including Middle Australia. So in our budget, we have a tax cut for all working Australians, not just high income earners. This is about relief to a broad range of Australians, a lot of whom are feeling that pressure right now.
But is it a recognition that the upper middle and upper income ranges weren't left as well off by stage 3 changes as they might have been previously?
No, Greg, it's recognition that a lot of Australians are feeling the pressure of their energy costs at the moment, and this was an efficient way to provide them support, which isn't inflationary. We also have measures in our budget specifically designed to help low-income earners, things like increases to rent assistance and more support for students, which is about that targeted base support. But this is a broad brush measure. It's about helping all Australians with their bills, all householders with their bills, because we know they're hurting.
All right, it certainly does that. Andrew Bragg, you wouldn't have noticed because you were in the Senate, but your colleagues in the House asked about a typical Australian called Andrew who relocates from Bellevue Hill to Parramatta for work reasons and owns 5 houses. Will he be eligible, was the question. Will he be eligible for all 5 houses to get the $300? I think we can work out that that was a reference to Labor MP Andrew Charlton. But in asking that question, what are you suggesting, that it should have been limited to 1 property per person?
Well, the design of these rebates is always difficult, and it sounds like on this occasion they've made a very lazy judgment here as to how they design the policy. Maybe they're feeling guilty about their promise to cut energy costs for people, and so this is a rebate that they're trying to make amends. But the government have made a mess of energy policy. I mean, they're belatedly looking at gas. They could have done more to lower the costs here to people. And so this handout is going to go to everyone, and there will be some perverse outworkings like the one you just described.
And nothing you can do about that. You're resigned to that. You're not going to kind of seek to amend it or something?
Well, I'm sure we'll have a look at the bill, but I mean, we're not going to stand in the way of relief. But there are some perverse outworkings there you can see, but obviously this is the government feeling guilty about breaking their election promise.
Take that point on if you could, Greg, Marielle Smith.
Can I just respond to that, because I just don't think it's reasonable. There are 2 mechanisms available to the government to provide energy rebates. One is to link them solely to Australians who are in receipt of government payments, so Australians on the pension and Australians on income support. The other option we have available to us is to provide that rebate for all Australians. This is a measure designed to help Middle Australia because there are a lot of Australians struggling with their energy bills. So they're the 2 choices. And the choice we made was to get that support to a broad range of Australians who are doing it tough, like we made the same decisions with tax cuts to extend that to all working Australians.
Yeah, I mean, would you accept that there are mechanisms here to do with visibility? Energy companies, we're told, don't have any visibility on people's income levels. That's not data that they see from the tax office or from anywhere else. I mean, that's the point Marielle's making. It'd be very cumbersome, wouldn't it, to try to filter people out on income?
Well, as I say, I think the government's feeling guilty about breaking their promise to cut energy prices. Energy prices have gone up, and so they've had to have these very strange interventions. Last year there was the payments again to people where they've ended up paying fossil fuel companies taxpayer funds. So there are many perverse outcomes here under Labor's bizarre energy policy.
Just pick up that point if you could, Marielle. Is this seeking to make amends for the $275 reduction promise, and does it?
Greg, this is $300 rebate for Australians on their energy bills because we know Australians are feeling the pressures of cost of living. That is what it is. That's what Australians are going to get. It's not clear to me whether Andrew's party supports this rebate or not. I support it because people in my community of South Australia are struggling. They're struggling with their energy bills, and I want to get this relief to them. In the same way, I want to see all Australian workers get a tax cut, not just high income earners, which is what Andrew's party supports.
All right, let's take you to Future Made in Australia. I'm still not entirely clear, Andrew Bragg, on the reason for the coalition's reluctance. In fact, it's stronger than reluctance. You're signalling you won't be supporting it at all when you're broadly regarded as the party of business and industry. Why not step up and support production credits?
Well, I've often called this the government for vested interests because it only gets out of bed for its favourite vested interests. And this is another boondoggle scheme where the government wants to spend taxpayer funds and give it to its best friends, in addition to the Housing Australia Future Fund, the Reconstruction Fund. And so what you will see here is more taxpayer funds given to boondoggle ideas. I think it'll be a disaster. They would be much better off, Greg, if they were going to cut taxes and cut regulation. That's the way to get the economy competitive.
Well, that is a part. I mean, speeding up approvals is part of Future Made in Australia, isn't it? But is the package imperilled, Marielle, by bundling everything together? You're going to have a single act to deal with all these things, and there are hesitations around, billions for billionaires, as they're calling it today. Might it have been better to take a piecemeal approach here?
Well, Greg, first of all, I get out of bed because I'm committed to driving intergenerational fairness. That's why I ran for Parliament. I'm not sure about Andrew and his colleagues or the point he's trying to make. And this package is actually about that in my state of South Australia. We know the transition to clean energy is coming. We know there are significant opportunities to be had from that and also huge risks. And I think it's our responsibility as a government to be driving the investment, backing in private capital in some of these industries, some of these opportunities, so we can create high-paid, secure jobs. That is hugely important in South Australia. My state will be a big beneficiary of this. It's about driving and supporting private industry. And frankly, if you believe in climate change and you're committed to an energy transition, you need to be looking into the future for policy responses, not looking behind us.
So is it just say no and just say no for all time on this particular program from your point of view?
It seems strange that there's not much to try and incentivise business to invest in terms of investment allowances or cutting taxes. It's just more taxpayer funds slushing around to more boondoggle schemes.
All right, we'll come back to that.
What's a boondoggle? I don't even know that.
Well, the
pork barrelling is
the Reconstruction Fund is a boondoggle, or the HAF is a boondoggle fund.
Right, all right. Well, look, I want to move on to housing. We won't get too bogged down in boondoggling. 10% increase in rent assistance, Marielle, for I think it's just over 1.3 million Australians. Yes. Is that it? Is that all on the housing front for the foreseeable future?
Absolutely not, Greg. So the 10%, I'll just say, builds on the 15% increase we made in the last budget as well. That's already having an impact. We're seeing it have an impact on CPI rents. It's a really important investment to support lower income earners renting, and I think it's going to benefit, as you say, 1 million people and be widely welcomed by them. This budget has $6 billion in additional spending for housing. That takes our investment up to $32 billion. We're doing that because pressures relating to housing, whether you're a renter, whether you're an aspiring homeowner or a homeowner with a mortgage, is a huge pressure on many, many Australians right now. We are focused on building supply. We're building 1.2 million homes over the next decade. That's our aspiration and what we're absolutely committed to doing. I think this is a budget very much focused on housing.
Yeah, well, listening to that, Andrew Bragg, that is a very long list with a very heavy price tag. You can't have it both ways, can you? Say there's not enough on housing in this budget, but the government needs to spend less?
Well, this is the budget that kills the Australian dream, because all the announcements in the budget last night, when you read through the papers, are about targets and billions of dollars for things. They're not going to actually happen. Like Chris Minns in New South Wales is laughing at federal Labor and their housing targets. There's wall-to-wall Labor governments across the country, and construction's going backwards. There are fewer houses being built into the future. These targets will never be met. And Labor's only main policy that they have in the Parliament now is the Help to Buy scheme, which is a hopeless idea. So Labor has given up on home ownership.
All right. Quick final one, because I know you put a bit of work into it, Marielle Smith. I'm sure it escaped many people's attention, but women's health, you've highlighted services for women who've had pregnancy miscarriages. Just a quick note on what that is.
Yeah, look, Greg, we expect in Australia that there's around 100,000 miscarriages a year, but we don't actually know that because there's not the data to support it. So one of the things we're doing in this budget is investing in that data so we can appropriately help women and their families who go through this tragedy. There's $7 million in there to support women and their families who experience miscarriage, money to support women with menopause. There's money around reproductive and contraceptive services. It's a $56 million investment in women's health. As you know, I've been fighting for this since I got into the Parliament because there is just so much inequity in this space, and I'm really proud of these investments. They may not be on the headlines this morning, but they'll make a big, big difference in women's lives.
Well, we thank you for signposting it for us and our audience here on the program. I'm sure it won't engender any debate or foster any from Andrew or anyone else in the Parliament for that matter. We'll thank both of you, Marielle Smith, Andrew Bragg. Great to have you back.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Well, every household in the country will be talking, I guess, about their energy bill savings, but the government's also used last night's budget